All right, we good? Very good. And then we need to, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance. So I'll start a Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very good. Next is anybody have any correspondence? I did receive an email from Anne make it, but I think that she probably feels the way some others feel as well. She's just and not certain what is needed, looking for more direction. She was looking at our intentions for Twitter, but what's been happening on Twitter has made her hesitant. Not a big Facebook person, so she was. She just wanted to put it out there that social media recently has made it more confusing for her, not less. And she's hoping that we can come out of the meeting with a clearer picture of what. Just trying to find it. And what direction we're going in, and how everybody can support. And I think, I'll even admit that I kind of feel that way too. So I'm hoping that from this meeting we can come out of it with clear to-dos, and move it forward. Now that we're out of the holiday season. So anybody else have any other correspondence? Okay. So next is the approval of minutes. I sent them around. I did send them around before the proposed December meeting, but I just sent them around again 45 minutes before. So if someone could out a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes from the November meeting.
Great. Thank you. And I'll second. Is there any discussion about the minutes? Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor, just aye, raise your hand or say aye. Great. Any opposed? Abstention? So that passes unanimously. The old business was the talk about create this community survey. And hopefully we can again come out of this meeting with an action of somebody who can help do that. I did look at some information and did try to come up with some working stuff. I guess we'll call it stuff. And I think that we just need to have a clear, everyone's input into. Just trying to find what it might.
Survey to find out how people get their information.
Kristen, I think your audio isn't great.
Is that better?
Still squeaking.
High pitched noise. And like it's muffled.
Do you
Want me to log off and come back on?
Try and just call.
Try call from your phone. That worked for me last time.
that stopped?
Another option, Kristen, would be to look at your audio input and make sure that you have you may have two options. And if you go to where the microphone is, you can make sure that for your audio, you're using the option you want to use. So there's a drop-down box next to the microphone icon.
Is that better?
Do you have a headset or earbuds you can plug in?
Yeah.
If you try that, that might help. as Kristen is doing that, can I ask a question?
Yes. Please.
Okay. There's so I had put into the Google Docs, I reconfigured a long list of Stonington committees and commissions, so that we could look at all of the committees and all of the, so there's the committee members, then there's commissions, and this seemed that this would give us a way in which to maybe sort of divide out, reaching out to a select group of committee chair people and or members to just do a little informal conversation to see what, how, and when they communicate, not within the community, not within their group, but to external individuals. I did talk to Lynn Young and was able to get just some feedback from her. I know her, and she's a pretty good communicator, and she was able to provide some feedback. But I think that may give us some structure even as we develop a survey, because, if we don't have one that's going to meet, at least some identified needs, it's possible the survey itself won't necessarily, people might not respond to it in a meaningful way.
I am one of the things I'm trying to figure out is or wrap my head around is this, like the community survey. Like there's so many directions we could go in regards to what people use themselves for social media, and rank them most important, because I think you'll find that younger people obviously but just how like the survey questions concise and into something that, and also communicates to us what we're looking for. And I think that's part of it. So that would be, for me, was to make sure we're all on the same page with what we want to get from the survey. And so yeah. So what do you guys think in terms of what we want to? If we're going to put a survey out there to, business, to people, constituents, people in the town, what do we want to know from them? Like, what is we're trying to see?
Probably what they want to know, like what do they want to be communicated about with, sort of.
Yep.
That's what I would. And how, I guess, do they want Facebook? Do they want Instagram? Both? Blast, so.
And if you just to add to that, and Bruce, and thank you, I think this is helpful, and hopefully some of this we can look through the sustainable CP information and kind of be a liaison to even connect you. They have some other resources, but exactly, I think in our minds when we were thinking about this survey, it was exactly a baseline. So what information do people want to get, and what method do they want to get it, and not just social media is one component, but so is do they need mailing, do they want postcards, do they want a newsletter, do they want something emailed to them, physically mailed, do they want more social media presence, which kind. So I think it's that whole thing. And I think to me one of the first questions would be like, do you know that the town has these methods already? And I think we're going to find most people don't even know what we already have. So hopefully the survey will also serve as an educational benefit. But so first, do you know the town has these things? Do you find their communication in these methods useful? If not, what feedback would you have? And maybe we can obviously fine tune the questions, but kind of get at what we already have and how we could do what we already are doing better. And then also think about what else additionally do we need to do. And just to use as an example, because both COVID, but also there were some issues with water in one part of town, we found out that a lot of seniors weren't signed up for emergency alerts, and they thought they could only get them through a cell phone or emails. They didn't know they could get it to their landline. And then obviously they didn't even know how to sign up. So it prompted this whole thing. And now the Commission on Aging is working with the police department to try and get all these seniors logged in and signed up. And that'll be an ongoing effort, but it took, we had to almost mail postcards to the people just to give a number to call to work through the process. So long way of saying, I think we want to be sure we're engaging all different types of people in different ways. So social media is one component, but it can be more. So I think to me, a baseline of what are we do people know what we're doing? Do they have feedback on how we could do what we're already doing better? And then what new things might they want to see? Like we don't have an emailed out official town newsletter. What would they want in that? Do they just want town like town government news? Do they want it to include highlights from nonprofits and other community kind of linkages? Do they want it weekly? That might be hard for us to do. Is monthly okay? So those types of things I think would be useful in terms of the survey.
Building on that, Danielle, and the group, one question I have is it's to some extent it's always easier if is it possible to invite every single existing committee? So you just mentioned that there was an issue of seniors potentially getting information regarding COVID and or water emergencies, and now you're working with the Aging Commission to committee to say, okay, how can we get this out there and how can we educate? If we had a better idea of what some of the existing issues are, I have 2 or 3 that have come up because of the library. People are very confused on how they sign up for vaccines, and this has become an identified need of how can the library be supportive in getting information, and helping people understand how to navigate that if they don't have access to, a laptop or specifically for seniors. But it's easier for us to be able to share examples to the community. And then say, okay, so based on these examples, are there other things that you may be aware of or that you need? Because part of it is if it's too long a survey or we don't have at least a baseline of information, I'm concerned about getting meaningful feedback from the people that we're surveying, which this sort of links into my question from before of how do we even have a baseline from what the current committee and commissions are doing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does, and actually links to the very first thing in the sustainable CT communications, whatever they're calling it, but like their communications kind of goal, and that they just came out with in January. So we're not really behind, but the very first thing they suggest municipalities do is an inventory. So it looks like Old Lyme, Waterford, some of these other towns have done it. So we could either directly reach out to them or just look at what they have in sustainable CT. But it looked like the very first thing they did was an inventory, not just of checkbox, what are our communication methods, but it included reaching out to board and commission members, like you mentioned, Denise, to say, how do you currently communicate your news? And it is interesting because some will have their own website, some have their own social media presence, and some have nothing. So there's a discrepancy there, and there's probably a way to better organize it and feature it so people can know what's already out there. But then also the baseline inventory looked interesting, where it's also like, who are we trying to communicate with? Is it just residents? Is it also visitors? Like if you look at our website, you can see now it's a bit probably more resident focus, but there is a little segment for visitors, but there's almost nothing in there. So, do we want the town website and potential channels of communication to be just for residents? Is it broader for visitors? And then some even get broken down more by like age group or demographic trying to reach out to. So I think that inventory, if this group could help and look at, how other towns have done it, how do we do an inventory and kind of maybe break it up into segments, and that could help probably very, very much build on the survey questions. And I'm happy to draft something and send it to you guys to build off of. But those are some of the things in that sustainable CT document.
If we came up with a list of no more than 5 questions that do you have a master mailing list for all the committee, commission, everybody who is serving on any of these committee or commissions that they could send out? And we could even do a Google poll, or, I mean, it's not that hard, just 5 sort of open-ended questions.
Yeah.
And
We
if
have all
we,
the chairs. We have all the emails, the email contacts for all the chairs. So that
chairs.
have to really probably follow up with them a few times to be sure that they send it to all their members. But that is definitely something we could facilitate. And I'm sure through other groups like the Nonprofit Roundtable or just some of our own connections. Hopefully we could first get it out. But that's a great point that we could start with the people who are already hopefully most engaged and interested in helping the town kind of improve with the board and commission members.
Right. And then is it acceptable to have an open meeting with everybody, with all the commission board chairs and members, like a large, I mean, it could be 100 people if they all showed up, but
we could only have one member from each commission join unless we posted them all as joint meetings for every single board and commission, which might get a little tricky, but they could each nominate one person to be like their communication feedback person and send them to a feedback meeting for a bigger group meeting.
okay. And
But
I guess
you can send everything virtually as a feedback survey to everyone. That's no problem. And we actually just did one on Google Forms, and it was pretty easy to put together and send out and kind of track the results.
okay. And I guess, and then this will be my last comment / question. One of the things that I've been sort of grappling with is how to most efficiently get as much feedback and have it not be feedback response, so that the process can sort of move in a way that it becomes collaborative. A 2-hour or an hour session or meeting could really move the process along really quickly if we had, sort of a diversity of ideas and people responding real time. And I'm just trying to grapple with how best to do that. Anyway, but that's my last comment. I'll put myself on mute.
No, it'd be great to get your guys' reactions or thoughts to that. And I think in my mind, it could be as simple as you starting with a survey, kind of compiling the sort of feedback results. You have a sort of working white paper, if you will, or document, and then potentially have a virtual Zoom call or meeting with asking each commission to send one representative ready to discuss, share, and like you said, kind of have a really active, okay, these are all the recommendations we got, how do we digest this, turn it into action? Or I think people usually will respond better when they have something to read. So the other thing I saw a lot of communities put together, not a lot, had put together was sort of their communication goals and mission statement. And that's something else new. It's one page, but sometimes a couple pages, but something to react to. Like, do you agree? Is this our mission? Is this the mission of the town of Stonington in terms of communication? I think that's where you get to who is our primary audience and what is it that we're trying to communicate? And that's where I think we've been grappling. Is it just strictly, an update from department heads, town staff, telling you what they've been doing, over this month? Or is it broader? Is it board and commission feedback? What have they been doing this month or this quarter? Or is it even broader? Is it the nonprofits and organizations that make up our community and do so much? Do we include them? So I think that's kind of the 3 layers that we've at least been grappling with when we're trying to, do little pilot outreach of communications here and there.
Do that like every department probably, Danielle, is different. Depending on the department, they may have different levels of success. So some may be doing stuff, and it's just that they've always done it that way, but aren't really taking note of how many people are reading it or how many people are engaged with what they're doing, whether it be a postcard, a newsletter, a social post. And so I want to make sure that we're like taking it from every angle. That when like if there's going to be a survey to the staff, to the departments and committees, that we not I think to find out how they what their perception of how effective it is, and if they have statistics to show us that show how effective it is or how many people are engaged. And then we're also talking about a separate survey to the people, right? And do we need the survey done for people, or can they happen simultaneously? And I want to see. I think they can happen simultaneously, but I want to throw that out.
Yeah, I think in some ways, it's a good point, Bruce. In some ways, the board and commission members kind of serve both purposes, because some of them do have their own feedback mechanisms and they can share that. But I think they're also kind of our end user. Like, you're doing work. Do you think the community knows what you're doing? And if not, how could the town better support you in getting that message out or communicating that? And similar to residents, I think it's, the question is just a bit flipped, but I think the end feedback we're trying to get is almost the same. For department heads, it's really just my office and then human services that really does most communication. The planning department could have some input because we pull a lot, we pull information from other departments, but they're not doing the communicating for the most part. Every now and then, the tax will have an update and do some of their own media for alerts and things. But I think for our purpose, there isn't, we could look at engagement stats for the human services Facebook pages and then the town. And we could probably also look, I don't think we have even click rates for like emails or openings, so we don't even have that much. So we don't have much on this side. So it'd probably be more that output email survey to residents and board and commission members, I think.
Danielle, I was gonna, not to get off topic, but Danielle, did you want to pilot something with social media as well besides the survey, or do you want us to all focus on the survey as a group, or do you want some people to focus on the survey and some people to focus on how to take the current social media presence and like increase what's happening?
No, I think there's three people who wanted to focus on the survey, which, like we said, it's writing the survey and drafting it, but then it's also that, I don't want to say intense, but it is a bit more of a heavy lift of trying to be sure we get it to the right people, that they actually respond. So it's probably a bit of chasing down people to remind them, please follow up, please share this. So it's not a ton of work, but it's probably at least a few hours for the month to do the survey. So I would see if like Denise said, if two people even wanted to tackle dividing up the board and commission emails, because we have 30 board and commissions, so each take 15 to really do some direct outreach with. Then I would see another two people could absolutely take a look at our Facebook and Instagram, because we do try and use it as a very proactive tool for communication. And just using the vaccine example, it has been really frustrating because we try and get all the information we get from the state and from Ledgely and post it on the website, and then do links through social media to be sure people know what's happening and help us spread the word. And then it'll be like an hour, a couple hours, a day later, you'll see somebody posts a question on the forum and like all this speculation back and forth, and you're like, there's an actual link right there with all the all the information you could probably ever want to know about it. So I do think I would like us to try and do some things in real time, since this is all happening in real time. And if we could get more followers or more people to know that the town is a good source of direct information for a lot of topics, I think it would be helpful. So we try and post things, but we don't really have a real plan behind our social media presence. So we could definitely use any help in terms of growing engagement, growing followers, how we could do things differently to increase our presence. So absolutely, the pilot things I think would be very helpful.
Can I say something real quick? I just and I don't want to like go off topic or anything. But I think that's a really good point of what you just said, Danielle. And I think that's kind of, I've been thinking of about this a lot before this meeting. And I think that we can plan and come up with surveys, but what's the whole point if no one's doing it? So I think, and I know that Danielle, you had said that like it's not in the budget to have somebody do it full time, but in order for you to communicate, in order for this to work and to have, you know, the town communicate with the residents, you have to have like someone do it. So I know it's not in the budget, but it could be an intern that we're planning this for. It could be, I mean, it really is like, it could be a total part-time job. I know there's no budget, but it's like, it's one of those things where I feel like if you did put it out there and it was a part-time thing, you would get, I mean, it's a great stay-at-home parent job. It's a great, you know, like kid out of school job, part-time job, just for that consistency. Because it's like, if you're planning this stuff, like then people, if there's no consistency to it, and like social media takes a lot of work, a lot of planning. So I know that it's hard for you guys because like you said, you know, it's like, I think it's Stacy doing it, right?
Stacy.
Yeah, and she's got, I mean, my Lord, that woman has like, she's juggling so many balls in the air. So it's like, you can't expect her to be on top of it. But like, even if you like one person is responsible and they could just run with it and have fun with it. And obviously it's a government, you know, run page. So they have to take it super seriously. It's not like it's something, you know, frivolous. But I just think that's something that we really have to think about, because it's like we can sit here and keep going, you know, talking about things, but it's like at the end of the day, if no one's going to be communicating it, then it's like kind of like, what's the point, kind of thing. So I don't know if anybody else feels the same way about it, but
I do. I feel the same way. I do guys feel the same.
Yeah. Well, I think on that, like if we had a document even written out to kind of, this is going to sound ridiculous to some of you, but like to kind of explain like what would it take to have a consistent and proactive social media presence? You know, just kind of even just a basic overview of like, you need to post at least, you know, once a day, you need to, I don't know, whatever it is, you know, if there's some best practices out there, and then to really think about then what are the benefits of that, and just like kind of a 1 or 2 pager. I think that would be helpful if this group could kind of compile, and then that's something we could talk about internally. And like you said, we could see if at first, you know, Stacy and I could try and do the best we can, and then we could always go back and say, look, if this isn't working, we need to hire, you know, maybe it's an intern or it's a senior project for a student. So there's things around, you know, outside of the normal budget channels I think we could get creative with, but like we're so novice at this that, you know, even we don't necessarily know what it takes to do it and to grow it and to do it well.
maybe like I'd be happy to come up with like a job description for, or not even a job description, but like you know, for this intern. I mean, senior project, amazing for like for a kid looking to go in marketing. Like there's so much opportunity for it, and I just think that like that's what the answer is. The answer to making sure that this is consistent and that things are communicated is just the fact of having someone do it. I know it sounds so crazy, but it's like whenever I think all of us, like whenever, even if it's not a government agency, if you go to a business and you're checking them out and you look the last time they post, or you just see how they post, you know, you can kind of tell like how serious they are. Like, you know, if they post 6 months ago, okay, you know. So I'd be happy to kind of put together something that
it would also be helpful, and anybody, doesn't have to be you, but maybe if someone else does part of it and you guys kind of, you know, feed into each other, but would also be like, look at what we are doing, like look at our, you know, a month or 2 month snapshot on, just using Facebook as an example because we're a bit more active there. And like, if there's some things that are like I don't know, maybe we could also give you like the login to look at the insights, but like, are there, you know, or where could we improve on what we're already doing, I think would be a helpful kind of overview or look into. And then, like we said, yeah, are there, besides more consistency, you know, maybe this is when it does get into like a survey level, is like, you know, or maybe it's just looking at the analysis, like there's some posts where you can clearly see there's like no engagement around, but it's useful information. So is that just not the right method or location to put it, or is it the time we're doing it, or is it because we just don't have enough of a presence? So we also just don't always know, like, you know, we'll share something that we think is really insightful and helpful, and it gets like 100 views and 1 like, and something else will, you know, be a ton. So it's sometimes hard to tell.
Danielle, I have a question for you. When you guys share your videos, do you post your video direct to Facebook, or do you do it from your YouTube link?
But from YouTube.
So I just reviewed some of the stuff you sent over earlier today, and it says that you will get better viewership if you actually directly post your videos to the town page on Facebook versus from your YouTube link. So just thought you might know that for what you're doing currently until something is figured out in the future, like maybe that would just be a little tip, because I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and that's why I think like a little best practice document or even like a checklist, and it could be
Yeah.
woven into this idea of a sort of job description or intern project, but to say like, are you kind of doing these things and where could you improve, and maybe just taking a look at what we are doing, and then at some point a survey to kind of get feedback. And I'm sure some of it is just we have to grow our presence. So is there a way that get more people to invite people, or a sort of awareness raising campaign we could do to be sure people even know, like Denise, back to the board and commission members, like I reached out to a few members about something, they didn't even know we had a town Facebook page. So even people who are so engaged with the town don't always even know what we have going. There's definitely a lot of room for improvement.
Can we use the forum? I mean, that forum is terrible, but I remember somebody was saying like that. I know that because that forum, everyone sees it. And it's like, I mean, the reach that forum has is unbelievable, as negative as it can be sometimes. But is he open to like working with the town to kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, no, Stephen's been really nice and helpful, and he actually is how I met Bruce. So he actually connected us for this purpose. It feels like years ago, but so yeah, I think just because some of the members take it in a negative direction, myself and most people in the town are always hesitant to post things directly there. But again, I think if there was a plan from this committee to say, either through Stephen as the kind of owner of the site, he could post things, so it's not a town official always doing it, or if there's some other recommendation for how to do it. But yeah, we do sometimes hesitate to post things there.
Circling back kind of to Abby's points before, I do think that kind of having an organization and a plan for what the town is posting would be super helpful. For example, you're saying you get like these COVID updates. Do you get those as they come out? Is it every Wednesday? Is there a schedule to it? Because I think if people consistently knew, oh, this is coming from the town on this day, and this is, on Mondays we get to see this, and on Wednesdays we see that kind of thing, they might be more likely to follow it, to be like, oh, I know if I'm going here, this is the information I'm going to get on this day, kind of thing.
No, Kristen, that's helpful, and that would be great in that checklist too, because we have, for the COVID updates, we try and post it every single Friday, because we get that's based on kind of when the information comes in. But I'd say other things are pretty haphazard.
Gotcha. So it just seems like it would help not only with kind of running the account, because I feel like it's kind of a dangerous thing to give an intern control over, or something like that, or if there's a senior at Stonington High who wants an internship in social media, it's kind of a scary thing to hand over the town's account to someone like that. But if there's some sort of a plan, we were like, this is the content that's going out on this day, it falls under this umbrella.
Put it in.
Yeah, like the town. Exactly. Yeah. It's more just like a plug-in place. It would make things a little bit easier. And then on the receiving end, people kind of know what to expect then from the town, and they're going there as a reliable source to know this is where I'm getting this information on this day. And maybe on Tuesday, it's the lighter stuff, whatever the plan would be. I just feel like consistency would help kind of on both ends.
Yeah.
No, that's a good point, because there's actually software and things out there that
like that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that's a good point. There's actually software that you can buy that like organizes your posts and stuff like that. So like the intern could plan them, and then like somebody else has access to actually post, because it'd have to be the right kid. You couldn't, not every senior like is for it. But that's a good point. Like, but there is software out there.
And not even kids, anyone. It's a scary thing to hand over that to anybody necessarily, because especially if you feel like, there's so much room for error these days when it comes to things like that. So at least if there's some kind of umbrella that certain things have to fall under, it might be a little more reassuring. Or then if people post and are like, oh, I didn't see this, you can be like, well, every Wednesday, if you check in, this is where you're going to get the information. Mm-hmm. Go to this place. It kind of directs people to the right avenue.
And maybe kind of going back to what Anne, like what Bruce was saying about Anne kind of not having like a guidance about what's going on. I think that maybe if we just come up with like that, we're coming up with a plan for someone.
Mhm.
You, even if that person may not exist yet, but like, or if it's Stacy, but like, does that, I don't know, that kind of makes me understand it a little bit more. Maybe that would make Anne understand it or make other people feel a little better about it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah, I
definitely.
think
Thanks,
that's
Abby.
one, yeah,
Yeah.
that's one component. And then I think the other component is definitely the inventory. If somebody could take on kind of looking at the sustainable CT and the examples from other towns of like how they did their own kind of communication inventory for the town, I think that's a very logical first step to see, how we're currently communicating, kind of what our reach we think is, and then I think that logically goes into the survey. Then it's, do you know these exist? How could they improve? These questions obviously could be improved upon, but basically, I think once we have the inventory, what we have, which again, we could put together and share with you guys to kind of build on, but here's an inventory of what we have, and then to do the outreach through a survey to board, commission, residents, nonprofits to say, do you know we have this and how could we improve? Could be really useful. And then I'm just looking at, like, for example, with Waterford, not to throw the library in here, Denise, but I just thought of you. Obviously a lot of towns have a town managed library, and ours is a little bit unique. But it does seem like a lot of these towns mention partnerships with their library for communication, and that could be interesting too to think about. Are there I'd say don't do anything really systematically in terms of partnerships with other organizations such as the library or the neighborhood center or the Como. So are there opportunities to cross-reference and support each other more in important communication methods? So just again, looking at other towns, sometimes it's interesting to see what they're doing.
Yeah. I think that we are getting there. It seems to me like, and I think this, we need one aspect of what the town is currently doing, and how successful they are, or at least they think they are in doing it. Like they can give us hardline numbers of what kind of engagement we're getting, and then from the people in the town, we want to know what they get, what they currently know, what they currently get and are aware of, and then once they're aware of everything, what they would want, I think. So from the inventory standpoint, you're inventorying what Stonington currently does and talking to each committee or department. And then the survey that we put out there would have, in my opinion, somehow communicate or get answers to what do you currently get from, how do you currently get your information with regards to the town? What do you want to get? What are you aware of? You know what I mean? There's a lot of different questions to ask, but try to figure out in a concise. Maybe we give them the answers and they can just check off what they know, what they currently get, what they want, or what they, so that it can be put into a statistical thing, easier. But because I think that some people may not know it exists, so they don't know they want it. And once they know it's out there, then they'll be like, oh, I didn't know I could get that. I'd like that, but I don't really care about that. But it's going to vary by person greatly, I think, because people are really interested in zoning. They may not be that interested in, going to whatever it is, library. So, people with kids are interested in Parks and Rec and what's going on there, but may not care about something. Who knows? So that's what I'm trying to wrap my head around is how we put the survey together and do it for the town and do it for the people. Maybe we can.
I think that's a great idea. And if it helps, we could start by sharing with you guys by probably next week just everything we have on the town side, and kind of maybe some just quantitative input on like how much use it gets. So I'm just even thinking there's a mechanism where people can sign up for updates on various boards and commissions. But again, this would be a question probably to the boards and commissions. I don't think many of them use it. So, people might check off, oh, I want planning and zoning updates, and all they might get is just an alert that, a meeting is happening, but it's not like they get an overview of this is what planning worked on this month. So I think there's some infrastructure that's there that could probably be better utilized if, again, board and commission members were willing to provide some of these updates more regularly. So I think I'll send you guys what we currently have and a little overview of that. And then maybe I don't know if Denise and Bruce, and I think Dan, I know is very busy, but he had said he was interested in the survey and or Anne, whoever, but wanted to tackle kind of drafting of a survey and then thinking about the outreach and follow up kind of implementation of the survey. For how we divide it between, like you said, board and commission versus residents versus nonprofit organizations, businesses. If there's different groups we want to kind of target. So I don't know. I just want to be sure everybody feels like they have a job or a role.
So it seems, I think that's great. And so if we, so this is a logistical question. So if we wanted to have, I'm going to just 10 questions that we could just write out, send to all of the committee chairs to distribute to their board and commission members, and really easy questions. We could develop that first and then post it on a Google Doc. Everyone on this committee could sort of respond between now and the next meeting, or now and 2 weeks from now, and then we could use that as a way to communicate if it was right, if we liked it, if we didn't like it, then send it to you, Danielle. Can we do that without talking to each other? I'm still confused. Yeah. I'm having a hard time, to be very honest with you, with this engagement, because I feel like, it's just, if we can't just pick up the phone and say, hey, Katie, Abby, Bruce, what do you think of this? It's so hard.
I think technically, as long you need to be sure you're not making any decisions to do like a new action outside of a meeting. But if you want to say, look I did this draft of a survey, please add to it, and then we'll finalize and discuss it at the next meeting, that's fine. So I think there's some gray areas, but I think what you outlined sounds smart and good. And I sent you guys that PDF, but maybe if you don't mind, maybe you could just, because I think this might help us in thinking about, there might be 3 kind of actions. So there's the one Denise described, which is linked to what I'll just share. There's this kind of social media outline, if you will. But then, so for the sustainable CT, for the provide effective community communication, the very first step is called develop your communication strategy. And then it breaks it down to a few bullet points. So I'll just kind of give a summary. But the first one is inventory existing municipal communication channels and assess their effectiveness. So that's what I'm kind of going to send to you. And then through the survey, I think we'll be able to assess some of their effectiveness. Engage community stakeholders in the process of developing a communication strategy to target audiences across your community. Again, I think the survey will really get to that. And then you outline how, when, and where you will make information publicly available. So that's, I think, once we get the feedback, we'll kind of draft then this strategy. And then there's a few other bullet points that go into, I think, more once you're actually like drafting the policy. But I think an end goal from the survey will obviously be the actions that we change, but also it'll help us actually draft a communication strategy that this group hopefully could, be the core group that's kind of helping us really write an official communication strategy for the town. And then we basically submit it. We'll have it on the website, but we'd also submit it to Sustainable CT. And like we said, there's other town examples out there. But I think I mentioned this just because I think the survey and this goal are probably very linked.
So it sounds like we're going to use we'll use the doc as a centerpiece, and we'll get the questions for I think Denise was saying no more than 10 to the committee chairs, and we'll try to outline those together in the Google Doc. And then if we can do that in the next couple of weeks, we can fine tune it and present it at the next meeting, and have that, get the action out after the next meeting to move on that. And then I would suggest the same thing for the survey for the people, that we try to work together to get the questions together, and we all can edit it and make comments, and try to do the same for a questionnaire for the people. Does that sound okay, Danielle? And anybody really, Danielle, but everybody.
Yeah.
I think I think it sounds great. And I know that we're coming up towards the end of the hour, but I have a quick question, because there are so many commissions. Some of them I understand are not particularly active, but if we had to divide and conquer reaching out to the chair people, which ones are the ones that we should focus on? Which ones have, do we think would have the best sort of feedback? And so, for example, I'm just going to put the 2020, well, that's a bad example. I won't use that one. The Stonington Stormwater Task Force.
It's currently not meeting, so that's a great example.
Okay, so I think, so I'm going to just highlight that as a yellow because they're not meeting.
Yeah, what I do is we're actually in the process of updating the website with the ones that are more active, but I can also just shoot over in an email which ones are more active, and then let me prioritize them, because a lot of them are some will be like, I can note like some, like the Economic Development Commission, beautification, they're all very active with their own communication, so they're like at a different tier level, whereas and the Shellfish Commission, they have their own website, they do a lot of their own work, they're excellent. And then like Planning and Zoning, Board of Finance, Police Commission, those could all, Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, those are all really important boards, and we don't do that great of a job communicating, I would say, in beyond, the very official kind of, here's our agenda, here's the meeting minute kind of thing.
Right.
So I can definitely put that down in an email to you guys.
Okay. And then maybe even being able to recognize that there could be groupings of these commissions. So what if what if like the Stonington Harbor Management Commission and the Shellfish Commission and the Waterfront Commission and the Water Pollution Control Authority and all of what I will call sort of the, more environmental came together and were able to share information to the public in, a single communication on a basis, because there probably is some similarities around some of the issues. If there's a big flood, many of these commissions may have some of the same concerns.
No, I think I see where you're going. We could play around with that, where like I think you or someone else mentioned, not every, some people might want more rec updates, whereas some others.
Yeah, Bruce said that. Yeah, I think that's a good thing.
But I think a thematic grouping could also make sense for some of these.
Okay, so I will. So one of the things I will take this spreadsheet that I created. I'll try to do some thematic groupings, and then I'll add more areas for input of, including like sort of a whole line where existing communications, and then use this as the document to start to develop the inventory, and anybody on the committee can go in there and add information that they may have that, that somebody else may not have. Like, so for the beautification committee, they have, they're very active. They send out, as you said, Danielle, they send out newsletters. They might be, a tier 1 group to talk to, because they'll be able to give us immediate information, and maybe their best practices are something that we can sort of say, hey, these are really working, and use those as part of not only the inventory, but a strategy.
That'd be really, I think, really helpful, and it'd be good to also just kind of see it.
Okay.
And I will definitely get started on getting the questions out there, the questionnaire for the people. and trying to
Okay.
break it up into a couple of different sections, and try to be as concise as possible with everybody's help. I think that everybody looking at it, and 6 heads are better than one. So, and then I know we don't have a lot of time. So one of the things that was very I had a hard time with was I was talking about scoring, and I couldn't. I want to say that I think the scoring comes. Figure this all out. Is that right? There's nothing to score right now, but so if anybody has any input on scoring, by all means, please. Like I know we talked about it, but I think that we would score.
Once like we get the data.
Yes.
Right. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yes. Thank you. And I think also that I as we've been talking, it makes more sense to me. Like maybe there's a score that we give to how active a committee is. One who's very active and very engaged is a 10, and who isn't would be a 1. And the same thing with people, like how there could be like how much interest they have in something, how much they post, how much they engage, and score the people who are using who are receiving the information too. Because if there was I'm making it up, but in my head, like if there was 50% of the constituents who really had no interest in anything the town did, they might be a very low score. We didn't really need to pay attention to them, but they may not realize they have interest. It all gets very confusing. But anyway, I think you guys know what I'm saying. There's a lot of thought there, and from a scoring perspective, it was difficult for me to figure it out. But this is helpful.
And that makes perfect sense. Danielle, if a committee is not meeting and not active, can they be eliminated?
Yeah, the stormwater task force, as an example, we lost our town engineer and we have a new one, so they will get up and active again. Others, they're still on the list because they were a committee and there's old notes there, but they'll be listed as inactive. So we have a page committees, and then we have one that shows all of them, but it'll say like inactive. I just sent you a link because it's a bit buried. Like I said, we're working on improving this page in particular. So it can be hard to find, but you can see in this more detailed overview PDF of who's active and who's not.
Oh, okay, because I think that would be really helpful because you can have them behind. I mean, we don't need to focus any, and we don't have to focus any time on them. And it may come out of this from a communication standpoint. Like I said, there could be these groupings of similar types of commissions that have information that it would be less onerous to have each and every commission or committee share information than it might be that, you have a grouping of people who all they have to do is just give a paragraph a month. And it's really important because then if you're interested in Parks and Rec, you can find out about the parks and what's happening here. And maybe there's something from the school board that would be interesting. But I just think that will help even from the attention of the actual residents, because nobody wants to receive an email from all of these commissions. I can tell you that. But okay, thank you.
Okay.
Daily sewer updates in your inbox.
Right, I know. Sorting out the structure makes it easier to sort of comprehend what's the best way to move forward.
Is there? There's nobody from the public comment. Is there anybody on the committee who wants to any comments before we adjourn?
I just have one really quick question for Danielle. Is it legal to do giveaways on the social media? Because that's a really great way to get new followers.
Yeah.
I would need to check. I'm not sure, but I mean, we can check it.
Because that would be kind of a cute thing to like partner with local businesses and then do giveaways. Because people go crazy. Even for like $10, you'll get tons of new followers.
Yeah. I was thinking about that too. Giveaways. That was good.
The chamber would be happy to donate something, like a local card or something.
Oh, I'm sure a lot of people would. That's the thing. You could just do donations. It'd be great.
Yeah.
And Bruce, I didn't mean to offend you about the community forum. I hope I didn't.
No, not at all.
Having a small business, I just cringe anytime I see it. I'm like, oh God, what are people writing? So,
Not at all.
but it is a good tool that we can use hopefully going forward. That's nice that he's open about it. So,
Great. All right. Well, thanks everybody. Appreciate your time. And it sounds like we're getting back up and going to go in the right direction. So I appreciate everyone's input. And I'll see you on the Google Doc, and we'll see you in a month.
Great. And I am going to stop the recording now. Thank you.
Thank you
Great.
guys so much.
Thank you, Danielle.
No, thank you guys.